Well, welcome to the 6th Annual Community Development Institute. Thank goodness it's not raining. Ithaca never rains in Ithaca, so this is actually just standard for our weather. So thank you all for coming. My name is Robin Blakely-Armitage, and I'm a Senior Extension Associate and Program Manager in CaRDI, which is a Community and Regional Development Institute here at Cornell. It's our pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to Ithaca and the Cornell campus. CaRDI is a group of community development-focused academic professionals, and we engage in multidisciplinary applied research and outreach and some teaching at the university. And we work in a variety of topical areas such as community food systems, economic development, energy, climate change, demographics, and more. And we engage with faculty across the campus and beyond, stakeholders across New York State and beyond, to help support informed decision-making at the community level. And this Community Development Institute that we're all here for today is a great example of this engaged approach. While the theme of every conference every year varies, the format stays the same. And I think it's the format that really brings the topics to light. We bring together diverse perspectives on community development issues through panel presentations, discussions, and we blend research, policy, and practice. So I first want to tell you who the we in this group are. It's a cast of thousands, it felt like sometimes, but a great team that came together to organize this event many months in the making. First of all, I want to thank our partners, LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, particularly Helene Calor, John Connolly, and David Hunter. And we'll hear from Helene in a little bit this morning more about LISC and sort of the brainstorming that went into this event. I'd like to thank our colleagues from Rust to Green Utica, Diane Shoemaker, Caroline Williams, and Derek Crossman. And we'll also hear more from them during this event. I'd like to thank the Office of Engagement Initiatives and Engage Cornell, Basil Safi and Deanna Gonzalez. And Deanna was part of the organizing team, and Basil Safi is the executive director. We'll hear from him this evening at dinner. And then CaRDI, my colleagues Heidi Moiso-Kunzman, David Kay, who's over here with the glasses and the nice plaid shirt. Hi, David. Myself, our faculty director, John Sipple, and of course, Sarah Day, who you met outside in the registration, without whom we would not have been able to pull this together. So thank you so much, Sarah. Also like to thank Ptolemy and Cornell Cooperative Extension for their added support. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground today. Each session is really designed to not just have a panel of experts talk to you for an hour and a half. We have a panel of experts to talk to you for a little while, but then we have a room full of experts, a room full of expertise. And so the idea is to build in a significant amount of time into each session so that we can engage in discussion, engage in dialogue with everyone. And so we'll be trying to keep the time. I'll be flashing my hands at the speakers, trying to keep them on time so we can do that. So thank you to the 40 speakers and moderators who are going to be participating in this event over the next 2 days. And thank you to the 85 or more additional people who have signed up for the conference. So with that, I would like to kick off the event by introducing Megan Folks and Carrie White. They are both with the Office of the Attorney General. Megan is the Chief Deputy Attorney General for Social Justice, and Carrie is a Special Assistant for Housing and Community Development. Thank you, ladies.
Good morning. Again, my name is Megan Fox. I'm the Chief Deputy Attorney General for Social Justice. Do you want to introduce?
Oh, and I'm Carrie White. I'm the Special Assistant for Housing and Community Development.
So the Attorney General is very sorry that she couldn't be here in person today, and in a moment she'll be greeting you all by video. As many of you know, the Attorney General has had a long and deep commitment to preservation of affordable housing and building sustainable, equitable communities. And through her work at the Attorney General's office, that commitment continues to expand through our work reinvigorating and sort of expanding our work around financial justice issues, access to credit, fair lending, and fair housing work. We launched a new housing unit to work, really across the state around preservation of affordable housing and making sure, tenants have, decent, affordable places to live. And then all of the work that we do in partnership with you and that Carrie is really spearheading. We are looking forward to partnering with all of you to sort of think through how we can continue to leverage our office's enforcement authority and resources to support the work that you all do. So please, any ideas that you have, please let us know. And so without further delay, we will introduce the Attorney General.
Hello, housing advocates. I'm sorry I can't be there with you, but even through this video, I'm proud to open a conference where the goal is to create opportunities and find solutions to housing and community revitalization challenges. The work that you're doing is so important to New Yorkers throughout this great state. LISC has been a key partner to my office in the fight for more affordable housing options in New York. Now, more than ever, this partnership is critical because more than a decade after the collapse of the housing market, New Yorkers are still feeling and seeing the repercussions each and every day. And zombie homes in particular are the symptom of a prolonged foreclosure proceeding plaguing our neighborhoods. We know that these abandoned homes dramatically decrease property values, burden local governments, and threaten the safety of surrounding communities. And that's why in July, we were proud to provide 48 municipalities with a collective total of $9 million in grants to properly address the housing vacancy crisis. These grants allow municipalities to do a number of things, the most important being to help ensure that vulnerable homeowners are not forced to abandon their property in the first place. I am proud that my office and LISC are working together to help turn these abandoned properties into valuable assets, homes. The money comes from a $500 million settlement last year with the Royal Bank of Scotland, marking a total of $22 million in investments to zombie grants funded by settlements from banks. Our settlement with the Royal Bank of Scotland was also why we were able to fund the expansion of the Community Land Trust Capacity Building Initiative and award almost $8 million to not-for-profit organizations. These organizations acquire and renovate distressed properties, provide training and technical assistance to homeowners, and create permanent affordable housing for the benefit of low and middle-income families. By providing the 9 municipalities with these grants, we are continuing to provide solutions for a problem that affects many families and individuals, the lack of safe, decent, affordable housing options. For my entire career, I've believed, as I'm sure you do, that affordable, livable housing is a right, not a privilege. That anyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status or zip code, deserves a safe, quality place to call home. This is a notion I will always fight for, and I know you will too. So thank you for the work that you do, and I look forward to the conversations that will happen at this conference that will help New York grow into its fullest affordable housing potential. Tish James, I'm out.
Thank you, everyone. So as the Attorney General highlighted a couple of programs, the Zombie program, which I think many in the room are familiar with, the program to support code enforcement. We also were lucky enough just 2 weeks ago to be in Ithaca, New York, to announce the Community Land Trust funding. That was the second round of grants for Community Land Trust. But those funding initiatives are a part of a much bigger program plan. Since the Attorney General, for the last 6 years, the office has been utilizing funds from the settlements with large bank institutions that contributed to the housing crisis to try to address the key issues that cities are still dealing with. Among those issues are deterioration of the housing stock and vacant and abandoned properties. So with these funds, the office has tried to support both cities in other programs that can help address those issues. Key among those, which we have a lot of partners here, is helping to support the enabling legislation that allowed for land banks to be created in New York State, and also providing over, I think, $80 million at this point for land banks to help revitalize vacant and abandoned properties in New York State. This has been a key initiative to trying to help communities who are struggling really turn abandoned properties into useful tax-forward properties that provide affordable housing for communities across the state. The Zombie program, as well as another program, Cities Rise, is really helping cities get better and more code enforcement resources, technology, technical assistance, and even staffing resources to address the deficiencies in code enforcement. We all know that many code enforcement offices are severely under-resourced, and if we're ever going to be able to address the key safety issues in our communities, we need our code enforcement offices to be strong. So as Megan said, we are both very excited to be here at this conference. We will be here both days if anyone wants to come up and talk about any ideas or thoughts that you have of how our office could be supportive. The Attorney General is very committed to this work and committed to providing safe and affordable housing for all New Yorkers. Thank you. We want to thank LISC and obviously Cornell for helping put together and host this wonderful conference. Thank you.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Helene Calor, who is the director of LISC's New York State Housing Stabilization Fund. She's been great to work with. The relationship with Cornell goes back before I got involved in this project, but my colleagues came to me one day and said that this could be a really great idea for us and to get Cornell involved. And it's been a real pleasure working with you and your team, Helene. So thank you. Come on up and tell us all about LISC.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to the Community Development Institute here at Cornell, and thank you so much, Robin. It has been a pleasure for us at LISC to work with you and the rest of the Cornell team. It has really generated a lot of new ideas and perspectives, which I'll talk about in a minute. So as you heard, I'm Helene Calor from LISC's New York State Housing Stabilization Fund, also known as the Zombie People. I know many of you in the room, but really looking forward to meeting the rest of you over today and tomorrow to see what new partnerships we can forge, because that's one of the big purposes of this conference, is to really get everyone talking. And there are already tons of partnerships in this room, I know, but there's always room for more. And also figuring out how we can partner with Cornell going forward. So I want to thank Carrie and Megan for their remarks and for bringing the Tish James video to us. Really appreciate it. And as Carrie and Megan mentioned, they'll be here today and tomorrow. So please, do take the opportunity to let them know what's on your mind. And I know you won't be shy about that. So, to tell you just a little bit about LISC is we're a national affordable housing and community development nonprofit. We're up to 36 program offices around the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and including offices in New York City and Buffalo. And we also have a rural program that covers 44 states and always expanding. Eventually we'll be in 50. We lend, grant, make investments, provide technical assistance to community development corporations and other community-based organizations for their place-based brick and mortar work, and also people-based programs. Okay, the short infomercial is over. And now I'm going to set the stage a bit for the conference. So in setting the stage, let's start with the players. I want to see who's in the room. So if you don't mind raising your hand. If you're from a city, town, or village, how many people here are from a city, town, or village? Raise them high. Okay, a lot of people. That's great. How about land banks? Okay, good number of land banks. How about Cornell faculty, administrators, students, a cooperative extension? Great. Colleges or universities other than Cornell? Good, good. So how many people from the nonprofit affordable housing organizations? Okay, great partners. Think tanks, advocacy groups? Good, good. Okay. And then any uncategorizable folks, people who would any other categories here? Okay. Oh, and from HUD, Jill Casey. Great. I didn't mention the federal government there. Okay. And I'd like to introduce you quickly to my LISC colleagues here. First, we have David Hunter, who works with me on zombies. David? Okay, Mary Talbot is here from our National Communications Office. Mary, if you want to, okay, stand up. She'll be tweeting during the course of the conference because, you know, tweets need to fight tweets. I'll just leave it at that. But also at the bottom of your agenda, I believe on the first page, is our hashtag. Zombies to Homes, and also the different handles. So feel free if you're a tweeter to join the fun. Okay? Matt Perkins is here from our National Safety and Justice Program. Andy Saavedra, who's from our rural program, will be joining us this afternoon. And we have Julie Barrett O'Neill from LISC Buffalo, who's here. Okay, so thanks to all my LISC colleagues for coming. So, how did LISC, Cornell, and all of you land in this room today? So it goes back, the beginning goes back 4 years, but I won't bore you with a lot of history, but basically the U.S. Department of Justice and the New York Attorney General saddled a number of actions to hold banks accountable for the bad acts during the foreclosure crisis. And out of that, several banks came to LISC and asked if we could help administer the funds that were generated by the settlements. And we could also call them fines. They came to us. They had the opportunity to work with nonprofits. So we were very happy to partner and use these funds, which were all for housing purposes. So we started out by making 76 grants, the zombie grants, to municipalities around New York State to really figure out the zombies and vacants issues by inventorying the properties, by tracking down owners and lien holders, and really coming up with strategies for what to do about the properties. And also in 2016, the New York State legislature passed what we call the zombie law, which required banks to, with liens on properties that were either in default or somewhere in the foreclosure process, to actually externally maintain these properties. And this was a major, major development because what had been happening is a lot of the banks were starting these foreclosure proceedings and just really letting them languish. So that's where the word zombies came from. I mean, these were houses that couldn't really be freed up for new uses. And also there was no one living in them because as soon as those bank foreclosures started, homeowners would just leave thinking, oh, I lost my property already. So, so these grants were really a way for the municipalities to start figuring out what the damage was, where the properties were, and what they might be able to do with them. So this is a powerful tool, the zombie law, and tomorrow we're going to have a panel on successes, and you'll hear more about how this law has been used pretty successfully around the state. We've also funded 15 land banks to do bricks and mortar work, startup funds, and also to fund AmeriCorps members to do volunteer work with them. And we've also done a bunch of subsidy, housing subsidy grants. So the city of Utica was one of our zombie grant recipients, and they retained Rust to Green, and you'll be hearing a lot about Rust to Green. an affiliate of CaRDI, to carry out their zombies work. And it's been a dynamic partnership that accomplished a great deal in Utica. And as a final project with the Utica Zombie Grant, Russ to Green organized a regional roundtable and invited their zombie colleagues from surrounding municipalities and also their land banks to just share notes on what they'd all learned and what their, experiences were working with the zombie program. And CaRDI stepped in to help run it. And so one thing led to another, and here we are today, partnering with CaRDI on this event. And I want to say to our Cornell partners a huge thank you. So you're saying Helene set the stage already. Okay, what are we doing here today and tomorrow? As you can tell from the title of the conference, Zombies and Vacants are the launch pad. But really, as Robin said, they're a symptom. I mean, they're just the tip of the iceberg here. And it's, it's a way to get into the issues. And, but we know they're all interrelated. I mean, it's a housing issue, it's a community development issue, it's a political and economic issue. And we often talk about economic and political forces as if they're like weather that we have no control over, but really it's about choices. So I think some of what we want to talk about is what are our choices moving forward? I mean, if we could write the script, what would it look like in terms of revitalizing our communities? And housing is also really interwoven with safety, economic development, the social determinants of health, climate change, environment, you name it. And there are even topics that we're not going to be able to cover in the next 2 days, like workforce development and education and asset building, individual asset building. But we know they're all linked. And so part of what we want to talk about is how are they linked? And especially how is housing linked to each of these? So some of the themes running through all the sessions are how we use partnerships, technology, how we're intentional about the work, which I'd call planning, and how do we genuinely engage communities? I mean, everyone's like, oh, we got to do some community engagement. Our grant says community engagement. But really, what is meaningful community engagement that helps municipalities, land banks, nonprofits really serve and work hand in hand with their communities and making sure that the result is something that communities want and will support. And then affecting all of our work is structural and spatial inequality. And let's just call it what it is, racism, and the effect it's had on our communities since we became a country, and what can we do about it? What are the strategies for moving ahead? And how does this racism affect access to credit, value of property, and resources more generally for communities? I know all of you struggle with these issues and how to address them. And in our first panel, which I'll call the big picture keynote panel, it's the view from 30,000 feet. We're going to start out looking at some demographics, some policy history, and also some history of what practitioners have been doing on the ground. And spoiler alert, some of the news is bad, but by tomorrow we'll be talking about successes. And as we know, we've got to identify the challenges, really figure out what we can do about the challenges and move ahead. So, and then tomorrow we'll also be talking about action items. Is there a way that we could continue to work together beyond this conference? And what are the, policy agenda items and other projects that might be worth working on together? So, how am I doing time-wise? 1 minute, okay. So this is my 10 minutes of fame, not 15 minutes of fame. So while I'm up here, I'll just tell you a couple of my own personal thoughts, and I'll do it really quickly. In the resources list that'll be going around, some links for you, I've included a study from the Urban Institute. They looked at where federal community development money goes, and no offense to Jill, but they have some findings, and some that really jumped out at me is that urban areas receive 3 times as much funding per capita than rural areas. And the places with the highest need, urban or rural, do not receive the most money. During this conference, we should talk about why. And I mean, there are a number of reasons for this, but sometimes it's harder to work in the communities that most need support and redevelopment, and so it's easier to shy away from that, or maybe they don't have the grant writers or resources to apply for all these competitive grants now. So really thinking about how do we resource the communities that most need it. And then there's so much talk about gentrification. Sure, it's an important issue, but there are far more places and a much higher rate of poverty concentration going on than gentrification. But there's just a lot less coverage about it, a lot less attention paid to it. And really the issue is displacement. And I really feel that whether it's investment or disinvestment, it's always low to moderate income communities and disproportionately communities of color who get the short end of the stick. So if you don't have resources because of disinvestment, houses rot, people can't live in them anymore. That's a form of displacement. And then the other side of the coin is, yes, very often when investment comes into communities, it forces out the people who've lived there and have been fighting for their communities for years. So just keeping that in mind, and then I'll stop. Thank you so much for being here, and really looking forward to working with you today and tomorrow.